Hi, hi out there. I'm Mama Robin or Texas Beach Mom, and this is Friday night. So on tonight's live stream, the original plan was to go back to the Lady Bird Lake murders, deaths, suicides, whatever they are, and I'm still working on some stuff on that. And in the meantime, a couple different topics have come to light. So we're going to talk about those instead. The first one I want to cover, probably very briefly, is Gypsy Rose. Everybody knows this case by now. Everybody's talked about it by now. And I don't normally talk about this case because I'm still on the fence about her. I mean, if you're a fan of hers, God bless you. And if you hate her, then I also understand. I have mixed feelings about her. But I will tell you what I'm solid on. I'm solid on the fact that there was medical abuse. There was absolutely medical abuse. If the state didn't have any proof of it, she'd have done more than 8 years. I can guarantee it. The state has proof of it. Missouri's Corrections Department, her attorney, various things like that. There is proof of it. And again, if you like her, great. And if you don't, that's fine too. But there is proof of medical abuse. And of course, then with a certain amount of medical abuse, there's going to be a certain amount of mental abuse. Even if the other abuse didn't happen, she was medically abused. And like I said, with that medical abuse comes a certain amount of mental abuse, having your unnecessary surgeries, having a feeding tube, having your teeth taken out, da 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 da. So all that stuff is mentally and emotionally draining and somewhat physically draining. So yeah, there's abuse all the way around on that. Did she know she could walk at a certain age? Yes. Was she told to stay in a wheelchair? Yes. I've heard the argument of, well, if she could walk, she could have just walked right into any police station at any time and told the police everything going on, and they would have got her mother, not her, and she didn't have to kill her. I agree, she didn't have to kill her mom. I agree. But at the same time, we don't know how much. We weren't there. We don't know how afraid she was. We don't know what kind of abuse was going on there, and we don't know how afraid she was. According to the story, her mother already had told everyone that she wasn't mentally there. She's not really listened to her. The one time that CPS did go to check on her, Dee Dee drugged her up so that she would be incoherent, so that she would sound like she's babbling and nothing she said would make sense. The doctors that participated in this probably should have lost their license. I've listened to the doctors' interviews. I have. So there was medical abuse. Now, I don't know about the other abuse, and I'm not going to pretend I know. But there was medical abuse. And her mother was a grifter. So for all the grifting and crap that she's pulling now, no excuse for it. I'm not saying that she has an excuse, but she learned it from her own mother. And there is stories from the family that suggest that Dee Dee learned it from her own mother, and possibly Rod. I don't know. But the only thing I'm just going to touch on with that tonight is simply this. If you like her, great. And if you don't like her, that's fine. But there's no reason to be out and out viciously mean. Especially from another content creator. When a content creator is trying to present the facts. And they're talking about the case and they're presenting the facts. There's no reason for that content creator to get mean or snide or hateful about it. I was watching a content creator last night that had me so mad. I watched about 5, maybe 10 minutes of her live, and I was done because she was hateful and she was snide and very immature about the whole thing. And like I said, if you like Gypsy, that's great, and if you don't like her, that's also great. Fine, whatever. I don't care either way. But there's no reason to act like a child and be snide and hateful and mean. And some of the comments that were being made last night by this content creator surprised me, being that she don't have any of the facts. She don't have any more facts than we have. Really, the only people that have facts besides Gypsy are the doctors and the lawyers. Dee Dee had, as far as actual abuse, there's some proof of that. As far as the crime that was committed, the only two people that know about that is Gypsy and Nick. I've heard some people go, well, she took advantage of him. He was retarded or whatever, and she took advantage of a retarded man. No, she didn't. I mean, there was a manipulation. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, though, I don't want to hear that. That excuse frustrates me. He was autistic, number one. And number two, I have an autistic child. And my autistic child knows between right and wrong. And he knows that you don't murder somebody's mom. I mean, if he had a girlfriend and his girlfriend said, I love you, and they'd been talking for months, and I love you, and I love you, and they were going back and forth, and she's like, well, the only way we're going to be together is for you to murder my mama. I do believe, I know my son will say, no, I'm not murdering your mom. I mean, and rightfully at that point, he should report it. He probably wouldn't report it, but he wouldn't go along with it either. And even Nick said in one of his interviews that he didn't want to do any of the murdering, but he loved Gypsy and would have done anything for her. So he got one of his personalities, Victor, to do it, because Victor liked to kill. So I'm not going to get a whole lot into the conversation about Gypsy. I just wanted to touch very lightly on the fact that there are some content creators out there that, and again, I can't stress this enough, in my opinion, you either like her or you don't. And if you like her, great. And if you don't, that's fine. You have a right to your opinion. But I don't think we should be mean and hateful and spiteful. We weren't there. We don't know. That's just all I was going to say about Gypsy Rose. I just feel like that one of the creators out there last night was doing a live stream, and I happened to stumble upon it and felt like she was just being really snide and hateful. And I don't want to say that as a content creator, she's supposed to be a role model, because that would put me in the same spot. I would have to be a role model, and I don't want to be. But by the same token, I think when you're presenting facts or you're talking about a case, giving your opinion about it's great. Being hateful and mean, I think, is just wrong. So it just really bothered me. But that's all I was going to talk about it. If anybody has any questions, they know how to find me. If they have questions about my opinions on Gypsy Rose or something like that, they know where to find me. They know how to talk to me. I respond to all the questions that come up. So if that's something that my regular viewers want to talk about, that's fine. We can talk about Gypsy Rose anytime you want. Just not on Watch Wednesdays. Now, because I do mostly true crime on this, I do want to talk about an unsolved case. And I've got my phone next to me to check information, but I know most of the facts of this case without checking. It's an older case. I do believe it happened 1981. It's sometimes referred to as the Ketty murders. It was Sue Sharp and her children were living in a cabin in Ketty, California, and they were murdered. Um, they have suspects, but nobody was ever caught. The case is still a cold case. So, being that I do have my phone open, I'm just simply going to read this the way it's written up because this gives the fact. I know what happened. The summary, if I had to give a summary, Sue Sharp and her two daughters and her son, let's see, two daughters, her son, and then she also said, I think, twin boys. Like I said, we're living in Ketty, California. They were in a cabin in Ketty, California. And one night, the oldest daughter went to go stay with friends, like a couple of cabins down the road. And um, two, the stories differ, but two or three masked strangers broke into the home and tortured and killed the family, except for the one daughter that was down the street and the two children in their bedroom. The two boys in the bedroom had a friend spending the night. They didn't kill the little kids, but they killed Sue Sharp, the mom. They killed the youngest daughter, and they killed the son, John, and John's friend, Dana. They didn't just kill them. It was brutal. It was a really brutal attack. Um, very brutal homicide. Um, there was lots of torture involved. There's been a couple of movies about it, of course. Supposedly, the original movie, The Strangers, that stars Liv Tyler. I had to stop and remember her name for a minute. That movie supposedly is loosely based on it, but there's a better movie on T, Toomey that I think does a better job. I will, while I'm sitting here, I will look up the name of the movie. But for starters, we're going to just talk about what this says. So the Ketty murders are an unsolved quadruple homicide that occurred in the night of April 11th, 1981 in Ketty, California, United States. The victims were Sue Sharp, Tina Sharp, John Sharp, and his friend Dana Wingate. These murders took place, the homicides took place on house number 28. I think the name of the movie on Toomey is Cabin 28. You go look that up. I think that's the name of it. And this actually gives a better portrayal of the facts than the big movie with Liv Tyler. The Strangers with Liv Tyler is a good movie. I just don't think it represents the story as well as Cabin 28 does. And it's a lower budget film on Tubi, but I think it does a better job. But I digress. The murders took place in house number 28 of the Ketty Resort. The bodies of Wingate, Sue, and John were found in the mornings of April 12th by Sue's 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, who had been sleeping at her friend's house. Sue's two younger sons, Rick and Greg, as well as her friend Justin Smart, were also in the house but unharmed. Tina was missing from the scene. So this family was brutally attacked, unalived, and I hate talking like that. I'm not a baby, but YouTube will smack me down if I keep messing up and saying the wrong stuff. So, but unalived, taken from this earth, whatever you want to use. Susan, Rick, and Greg, as well as her friend Justin Smart, were also in the house but unharmed. Tina was missing from the scene. Tina remained a missing person until April 1984. So stop for just a second. Let's go back. This happened in April of 81. She was found later, April 84, when her skull and several of the bones were recovered at Camp 18, California, near Feather Falls in Butte County, about 62 miles from Ketty. Multiple leads and suspects were examined in their interviewing years, but no charges were filed. Several new leads were announced in the 21st century, including the discovery of a hammer in a pond in 2016 and the discovery of new DNA evidence. Now, I don't know what the new DNA evidence is, but I know the story. And I heard about it a long time ago. And kind of like John List, it's just kind of stayed with me. We talked about John List last Friday night. But anyway, the Kenny murders, like I said, they were brutally attacked, and there are some reports that they were tortured. I really, 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 since I can't really go into great detail on YouTube, I really recommend that anybody wants to know about this case, they go to Tubi, because you can stream Tubi stuff for free. You go to Tubi and it's Cabin 28, and it's very, very good rendition of what really happened. But it's not for if you're squeamish, if you can't handle the sight of blood, if you can't handle a lot of things. Wouldn't suggest you watch it necessarily. Or if you do watch it during the daytime, or not when you're alone, I guess. I've seen it a few times, and I have to tell you what, it's hard to freak me out. It really is. It's very hard to freak me out, but that movie bothered me. Not to the point of like having nightmares or anything, but it did bother me. It bothered me because number one, it was so graphic, and number two, when you realize it actually did happen, this just wasn't Hollywood magic. Uh, it was something else. But we're gonna go on background. In July 1979, Sue Sharp. Wait a minute. In July 1979, that can't be right. Sue Sharp. Okay. Sue Sharp, born. Okay, she was born March 29, 1945, Springfield, Massachusetts. Sue Sharp. In July 1970, Sue Sharp, along with her 5 children, left her home in Connecticut after separating from her husband, James Sharp. They relocated to Northern California, where Sue's brother Don lived. Upon arriving in California, she rented a small trailer formerly occupied by her brother in the Claremont Trailer Village in Quincy. The following fall, she moved to the house number 28 in rural Sierra Nevada Railroad town of Ketty. The house was much larger than the trailer and became available when the Plymouth County Sheriff Sylvester Douglas Thomas vacated the property. She resided there with her 15-year-old son John, her 14-year-old daughter Sheila, her 12-year-old daughter Tina, and her 2 younger sons Rick and Greg. Now, I had said something earlier about them being twins, but they weren't, because Rick was 10 and Greg was 5. On April 11th, 1981, around 11:30, Sue on April 11th, 1981, around 11:30, Sue, Sheila, and Greg drove down from the residence of their friends Meeks family to retrieve Rick, who was attending baseball tryouts at the Garner Field in Quincy. They happened upon John and his friend Dana hitchhiking at the mouth of the canyon in the Quincy to Ketty, and then drove them about 6 miles. 2 hours later, around 3:30 p.m., Dana hitchhiked back to Quincy, where they may have had plans to visit friends. Around this time, the boys were seen in the city's downtown area. That same evening, Sheila had plans to spend the night with the Seabolt family, who lived adjacent in 27. So if they were 28 and Seabolts lived in 27, and that's where the oldest daughter is at, how come nobody heard a thing? See, this is stuff I'm reading this, and some of this is kind of new to me. So if cabin 28 is here, and cabin 27 is here, whatever, they're fairly close to each other. It's not like maybe neighborhood close, but they're fairly close. How did all these people get murdered or excuse me, I'm sorry, YouTube gods, murdered, unalived, whatever. How did they get that done and nobody heard a thing? I'm lost and confused on that, but let's go on because I'm going to digress here. That same evening, Sheila had plans to spend the night at the Seabolt family who lived in adjacent 27, while Sue remained at home with Rick, Greg, and the boy's young friend Justin Smart. Sheila departed the house 28 shortly after 8 p.m. to sleep at the Seabolts. Tina, who had been watching television at the Seabolt residence, returned to 28 after asking what the time was. It was 9:30. Um, Murders in the Discovery. At approximately 8 a.m. on the morning of April 12th, Sheila returned to 28 and discovered the unalived bodies of Sue, John, and Dana in the house's living room. All three had been bound with medical tape and electrical cords. Tina was absent from the home, while the three younger children, Rick, Greg, and Justin, were found physically unharmed in the adjacent bedroom. So there's another question that comes up. Why was the mom and the son's friend murdered, unalived, and yet the three little kids were left alone? Not that I'm not happy that they didn't survive it, but why were some of them unalived and some of them weren't? Um, let's see, the medical technical records. Tina was absent from the home, while the three younger children, Rick, Greg, and Justin, were found physically unharmed in the adjacent bedroom. Upon discovering the scene, Sheila rushed back to the Seabolt's house, and Jamie Seabolt retrieved Rick and Greg and Justin through the bedroom window. He later admitted to having briefly entered the home through the back door to see if anyone was still alive, potentially contaminating evidence in the process. The murders of Sue, John, and Dana were especially vicious. Too bloody. I'm going to get in so much trouble with YouTube. They're going to smack me down. The unaliving of Sue, John, and Dana were especially vicious. I don't know why I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. The two bloodied knives and one hammer were found at the scene. Blood spatter evidence from inside the house indicated the murders had taken place in the living room. Sue was discovered lying on her side near the living room sofa, nude from the waist down. And gagged with a blue bandana and her own underwear, which had been secured with tape. She had been in the chest, and her throat was stabbed horizontally, the wound passing through her larynx and nicking her spine. Because, see, even in the movie, it doesn't explain that much, and the movie was good, but stabbed horizontally with the wound passing through her larynx and nicking her spine. They so deep that it nicked her spine. And the side of her head was an imprint matching the butt of a Daisy 880 Paraline BB pellet rifle. John's throat was also slashed. Dana had multiple head injuries and had been manually strangled to death. John and Dana suffered blunt force trauma to their heads and caused by one or more hammers. Autopsies determined that Sue and John died from the knife wounds and blunt force trauma. Dana died by asphyxiation. Oh my goodness. Since I said when I started reading this, I told you, if y'all are screaming, don't, you feel free to leave. They do have pictures of the scene. I'm not, obviously, not going to show them. Sheila and the Seabolt family, of whom Sheila had spent the night with in the neighboring home, heard no commotion during the night. See, this is what confuses me about this case. You had these people that were unalived and very violently and very brutal and aggressive, and these people were right next door and didn't hear anything. Oh my goodness, nobody heard any commotion during the night. The couple living house nearby 16 was awakened at 1:15 by what sounded like muffled screaming. Martin Smart, a neighbor and the main suspect, claimed that Claw Hammer had supposedly gone missing from his home. In addition to the interview of the Smarts, detectives interviewed numerous other local neighbors. Several, including members of the Seabolt family, recalled seeing a green van parked at the Sharps' house around 9 p.m. Justin offered conflicting stories of the evening and stated that he had dreamed details of the murder. In the later account to the events told under hypnosis, he claimed to have seen Sue with two men. Based on Justin's description, composite sketches, two unknown men were produced by Harleen Embry, a man with no artistic ability and no training in forensic sketching. It was never explained why the access to the Justice Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation's top forensic artists, law enforcement chose to use an amateur who sometimes volunteered to help the local police. The press releases accompanying by the sketches, the suspects were described in their late 20s to early 30s. One stood between 5'11" and 6'2", with dark blonde hair. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Another between 5'6" to 5'10" with black greasy hair. Both wore gold framed sunglasses. Rumors regarding the crimes being ritualistic or motivated by drug trafficking were dismissed by the Plumas County Sheriff Doug Thomas, who stated in the week following the murders that neither drug paraphernalia nor illegal drugs were ever found in the home. Now, as I was talking about earlier, one daughter was removed from the scene. When they got there, Tina Sharp was missing. Tina's disappearance was initially investigated by the FBI as a possible abduction, although it was reported on April 29th, 1981, the FBI had backed off the search as California State Department of Justice was doing an adequate job. So the FBI basically said, well, we're not going to mess with this no more. We're just going to let the state police do this. It made the FBI's presence unnecessary. A grid pattern search of the area covering 5-mile radius around the house was conducted with police canines, but the efforts were fruitless. On April 11, 1984, a bottle collector discovered the cranium portion of a human skull and part of a mandible at Camp 18 near Feather Falls in a neighboring community, roughly 5 miles from Feather Falls, California. The remains were confirmed by forensic pathologists to be those of Tina. So Tina's remains were found in June of 84, and this happened in 81. So 3 years go by. This girl's been considered just missing for 3 years, and all of a sudden they find her remains. Shortly after announcing the discovery, the Butte County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous call that identified the remains as belonging to Tina, but the call was not documented. A tape containing a recording of the call was found at the bottom of an evidence box, and at some point after 2013 by a deputy who was assigned the case. Subsequent developments. The house in which the murders occurred was demolished in 2004. According to a 2016 article published by the Sacramento Bee, Martin Smart, who had left Ketty and driven to Reno, Nevada shortly after the murders, while there he sent a letter to his wife Marilyn ruminating on personal struggles in the marriage, which he concluded by stating, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I bought it with 4 people's lives." Okay, so Martin Smart, the father to the little kid, Justin Smart, that was found in the house, wrote a letter after he went to Reno, Nevada, wrote a letter to his wife Marilyn talking about the personal struggles of their marriage. And he says, "I have paid the price of your love. I have paid." I'm going to make sure I'm reading this right. "I have paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives." Now, I do know that Martin Smart was interviewed. Him and some friend he had with him, I can't remember the guy's name. They were interviewed. They were, questioned and stuff, and no arrests were made. But he tells his wife in a letter that he wrote I have paid the price, quote, I have paid the price of your love, and now I bought it with four people's lives. Four people. That would be Sue Sharp, John Sharp, Tina Sharp, who was missing, and John's friend Dana. In a 2016 interview, Gamberg stated that the letter was overlooked. Seriously? The letter was overlooked in the initial investigation and was never admitted as evidence. He later criticized the quality of the initial investigation, saying you could take someone just coming out of the academy and they would have done a better job. Well, and that don't just beat all. You know what I mean? Like this guy that's handling this now is like you could have taken some whatever off the street right out of the academy and he'd have done a better job investigating. Oh lordy, people. Oh lordy, 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 lordy. Okay. In 2016, the investigation, you could take someone out of the academy. A counselor whom Smart regularly visited, who also alleged he admitted the murders of Sue and Tina. I didn't have anything to do with the boys. So he, according to a counselor, Martin Smart regularly visited a counselor, and he claimed that he murdered Sue and Tina, but he claimed I didn't have anything to do with the boys. The boys. So that's saying that his friend, he's implying that he killed the women, but he didn't kill John and Dana, implying that his friend that was with him did. Tina was killed. Tina was originally taken away and then killed to prevent her from identifying him because she witnessed the whole thing. Oh, I cannot pronounce his last name. John Boob I Boob Aden. And then I'm gonna mess this up. And I'm sorry. I've tore this name up. I'm sorry. This guy named John, another suspect, who was in the same neighboring cabin as Smart, must have been his friend, allegedly had ties to organized crime in Chicago. On March 24, 2016, a hammer matching the description of Smart claimed that he had lost was discovered, that he claimed it disappeared, lost, was found in a local pond and taken to evidence by the Plumas County Special Investigator Mike Gameberg. Plumas County Sheriff Hagwood, who was 16 years old at the time of the murders, knew the Sharp family. The location was found. It would have been intentionally put there. There had not been accidentally misplaced. Gameberg also stated that at the time, 6 potential suspects being examined. In April 2018, Gameberg stated that DNA evidence recovered from a piece of tape at the crime scene matched that of a known living suspect. So they've got this Martin Smart, who apparently wasn't very smart, and his friend. They were the main suspects, but nobody was ever arrested. This Martin Smart told his wife, I've paid for your love with 4 lives. He told a counselor that I killed the girls, but not killed the boys. Are you serious? And nobody did anything with this information? What the hell and why? In 2018, years in DNA was from peace. Okay. Popular culture. So it was featured in an episode of a YouTube documentary series BuzzFeed Unsolved. Yeah, I knew that. That's really about it. I mean, that's all that we know about the Ketty murders. Um, you know, I, like I said, but this is what we know about the Ketty murders. We know that she was home with her kids. Her oldest daughter was spending the night next door. She was murdered and possibly SA'd. because she was naked from the waist down. This son was murdered similar to the mother. I swear to God, one of these days, YouTube's just going to throw me in jail. YouTube jail, and never get my channel back. Because I keep forgetting their rules. To me, it's just stupid. You can't say murdered. You have to say murdered or unalived. I don't know. I'm an adult. I'm 60 years old. And my videos aren't set for children, but whatever. Um, but anyway, so she was murdered. Everything was cut very deeply to the spine. Same with the son. The friend was strangled, asphyxiated, whatever. Um, Chat's disconnected, has been this whole time. So I'm sorry. If anybody wants to say anything, you'll have to just leave me a comment on the replay. But yeah, killed, murdered. I keep slipping up. I'm telling you, they're going to throw my channel away. And Tina was taken and then on alive later because she witnessed the whole thing. A man, the father to one of the little boys that was left alive, told his wife that I proved that I love you from the life of 4 other people, and told the counselor that he killed the girls and not the boys, and nothing happened to him. If I remember right, I do believe Martin Smart has passed away. Where is Martin Smart of the Ketty murders? Okay, the house was demolished. I know all that, people. I just read all that. I think Martin Smart. I think I heard somewhere that Martin Smart is dead. He has passed on. So he did. If he did this, him and his friend, if they did this, they did it and walked away scot free. This case is still open. I mean, it's not open. It's a closed case, but it's not solved. It's cold. It's a cold case. Sometimes I get my terms confused, but it's a cold case. So, yeah, it's a cold case. She was killed, or they were murdered just for no reason. So, if you can handle this kind of stuff, I'm going to tell you again, go to Tubi, and they have a movie called Cabin 28. You go there, you watch that movie. That movie will cover this. It covers it very, very well. It covers it more like a docudrama or docudrama. And then again, the movie Strangers with Liv Tyler, the original Strangers movie, is loosely based on this story, but it's not accurate. Whereas I think the one on Tubi is more accurate. It is a lower grade movie. It was made cheaper, but it covers the case, I think, better, more closely. And like I said, it's pretty gruesome. So if you want to see and you can go look up Ketty murders, and it'll give you the crime scene photos if you really want to see all that. I just can't do it here. But that's all we're going to talk about tonight. I did that brief. We covered Gypsy Rose very briefly, not so much the case, but about certain content creators being hateful and snide and just mean. And again, if you're a Gypsy Rose fan, great. And if you're not, don't like her, don't trust her, that's also fine. Those are your opinions. I just don't understand the hate. I think the hate's unnecessary, especially when you're trying to provide content for your viewers, but that's just my personal opinion. So that was touched on, and then we talked about the Kelly murders. I intend to continue to do some work on the Lady Bird Lake murders, deaths, suicides. And the reason why I have to put it like that is because the police keep saying they were all accidental drownings. The families don't believe that. So I'm going to keep working on that because, like I said, there have been like 18 people over like 22 months that have died. Not 18, 13, excuse me. 13 people over 22 months, and they were all accidental drownings, according to law enforcement. I don't buy it. Neither does the rest of the families. I, I don't buy it. So hopefully that'll be next Friday's stream. Will be about the Lady Bird Lake deaths. I guess I can't say murdered because we don't. They're allegedly they were ruled as suicide, not suicides, accidental drownings. So we'll get into that next Friday. Um, Apparently, YouTube is having problems with chat. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I know tonight was short compared to last Friday. If you have questions, you can always leave questions, comments. You can always leave them on the for the video, and I'll get back to you. And I, if I see them, I'll get back to you. And if you don't, just want to go watch the movie, that's also fine. Again, I appreciate everybody that shows up. I appreciate everybody that likes and subscribes and shares. Because even if I'm not your cup of tea, by liking it, you help get me into the algorithm, and then people that might like me find me easier. So, like, subscribe, share, please, on your way out. I will be back next Friday for a live stream, and every Wednesday I do upload a video on the Watts case. And I'm looking for something to talk about on that because there's never anything new. So in the meantime, I hope everybody takes care of yourselves. You take care of each other. Make good decisions. Please be loving and kind. Or try to be. I know sometimes it's hard to be loving and kind to certain people, but try. And yeah, I appreciate everybody. In the meantime, y'all have a beautiful night. I will see some of you Wednesday, and hopefully some of you will be back next Friday. Y'all have a great one. Good night.